Good morning, everybody. There's three things that I want you to be able to do after completing these problems. I want you to be able to declare a variable, so that means create it, like in these three examples where I'm creating name and age and job. I want you to be able to save things into variables, like Marl gets saved into name, 27 gets saved into age, firefighter gets saved into job. And I want you to be able to display the variables using print and print line statements. So if you can do those three things by yourself by the end, then you know you got it. So let's do the first one together. The first one, you just type in the example code exactly the way I have it written in your own project. And that's just to practice to make sure that you know how to make a project, type in code, and have it run. And it's pretty normal for people to mistype things and to have it not work. And that's why you've got to call someone right away, because you don't know enough yet to fix it, and there's lots of different things that could be going wrong. So let's start this way. I'm going to start by making a project, and I'm going to do this, create a new project, and then I'm going to create a new class. Class means program, and the class is going to be called variable exercises. So here I am in IntelliJ. I guess I'll show you how to do this in repli.it in just a second. So to create a new project, you go to File, New Project. You click Next again, and you can name the project whatever you want. Here, don't do this. I'm just changing this to a temporary folder for myself. Okay, so I'm going to call the project Variables, and then click Finish. It might say that the folder doesn't exist, and if that's true, you can click Create. And I'm going to open the project in this window. If you ever need to pause the video or watch it slower because I'm going too fast, you can definitely do that. Okay, so if project is hidden, you can click project here and it will open the project tab. This should be the name of your project. And oops, sorry. Yeah, this one. And you can expand it by hitting the arrow. SRC stands for source code. So you want to right click there and say New Java Class. I'm going to call this Variable Exercises. The only rule about naming your class is you can't have a space in it. I couldn't name it this. It's got to be no space. All right, so I'm going to make the font larger so you can see it more easily. So if we look back at the assignment sheet looks like this: public class variable exercises, and mine looks like that: public class variable exercises. What I'm doing right now, switching back and forth between the two, that's probably going to be much harder for programming for you guys. So when you're programming, what I recommend is keep the split screen setup where you've got IntelliJ on one side like this, and then the assignment document on the other side like this. So I hope you can see the part that we're missing is public static void main. So always make sure that your cursor is between this opening curly brace and the closing curly brace. And you can type PSVM tab, and it will automatically type all of that for you. Okay, so your code, the lines of Java that you write, are always here in the middle between this opening and closing brace. So what are we going to type? We're going to type all of this code from my example. There's lots of ways you can go wrong. So you could type string name equals Marl like this. Oops. And there's already 3 things wrong with this code, 4 things wrong with this code. IntelliJ, the editor, is going to show you some of the things that are wrong by highlighting them in red. So a very small detail that's very important: it's got to be a capital S instead of a lowercase s. And you can see it if you look very carefully over on this side. You need double quotations instead of nothing. And then you have to have a semicolon at the end of every single line. It's like putting a period at the end of your sentence in English. So I'm going to go ahead and type the rest now. So I've typed the first 3 lines. And just to remind you, each of these lines is creating a variable and saving something inside it. The first word is the data type, which says what kind of information is going to be saved in the variable. So string means text, and you can see on this side, inside the quotation marks, it's text that's getting saved into the name variable. So the first word is always the type of data. The second word is always the name of the variable, which is like the label on the box. And then after the equal sign, it's the value that you're going to save inside the variable. And the equal sign doesn't mean what it means in math. It doesn't mean those two sides are equal. It means something more specific. It means that you're going to take whatever's on the right and save it inside the variable on the left. So now I should have name contains Marl, age contains 27, and job contains firefighter. Instead of typing system.out.println, you can type SOUT and then hit tab. And now we got to another thing that I saw a lot of people having trouble with in class. So if I want to have the word introducing, this is going to display just the word introducing. But if I say introducing plus name and I run it, I want you to look at what it looks like when I run this. Down here, it literally displayed introducing and then the plus sign and then name. But that's not what I want it to do. What I want it to do is I want it to actually display Marl. I want it to display what's inside the variable. So the problem here is anything that's inside double quotes is going to display exactly the way that it looks. So I want to close the double quotes. And you see now there's an error because I've got 3 of them. Double quotes always need to come in pairs, and now this third one out here doesn't have a partner, so I'm going to delete it. So now if I run it, you'll see how the display changes. Now it says introducing colon, so that's this part, and then it displays Marl. And it did that because it looked inside the name variable and saw that Marl was there. What happens if you forget the plus? If you forget the plus, you see it says comma or parentheses expected. So the editor guessed wrong about what the problem was, but it was right that the problem is happening right here. What the plus sign means is the plus sign is a way of putting together 2 pieces of text. So this is a piece of text, you can tell because there's double quotes. And then name is also text, and you can tell because it has text inside it. It's got Marl inside it. So if you want to display text and then a variable and then more text, you always need to put a plus sign in the middle. So I've got introducing, and then after that, the variable name, and then after that, let's see what it says in the prompt here. It's got the word the, and then after the word the, I've got age. So see how words that I want to display are always in double quotes, and then when the quote is over, I have a plus sign, and then after the plus sign, I have a variable. So you can look at it as like a whole sequence of things. Text, and then a plus, and then a variable, and then a plus, and then text, and then a plus, and then a variable, like that. I'm going to type the rest. Okay, so let's run this now, see what it looks like. So this looks pretty good, but it's not quite what I want because it's all run together. It says introducing Marl, the 27-year-old firefighter, but I want spaces in there. So if you remember last time, well here let me sort of reiterate the lesson from last time. You might think that you can put spaces here because look, I need a space right before the, between the name and the. And so you might think you could put spaces there, but if I run it, you'll see that it hasn't changed at all. It's exactly the same as before. So it's not displaying any of these spaces. And the reason why is because it only displays things that are either inside variables or it displays things that are between double quotation marks. Whoa. So if I want spaces, I've got to add the spaces inside the quotes because that's the only part that gets displayed. All right, I'm going to run it again. Okay, that looks a lot better. So I'll let you guys type the second one. And let's go on to the next exercise. So it says modify the example and add 2 more variables. A variable called height that can hold decimal numbers, and a variable named fave food, which holds text. So I'm not going to solve that problem, but I'm going to let you solve that problem, but I'm going to solve a related problem. I'm going to add 2 other variables. So I'm going to add, what are they going to be? I'm going to, oh, you might not know this, but double slash means that you can write a note to yourself that the computer will ignore. See how it's kind of grayed out there? So if you ever want to write a little note to yourself in your code about what it's doing, you can do that. So I'm going to add a variable named money that holds decimal numbers. And I'm going to add a variable named favorite greeting that holds text. So what's that going to look like? Whenever I'm creating variables, you've got to decide the name of the variable and the data type, what it's going to hold. So decimal numbers, if you don't remember what data type is for decimal numbers, that's what the notes are for. So you can look them back up in the notes. In the notes, it'll say double. So that's going to be a really important thing in this class, is there's a lot of content and you're not supposed to memorize it, but you really do need to be able to look it back up in your notes. So as soon as you don't know something, you should ask, is it in my notes? And go check there, and probably it will be. So I've got the data type double, the name is money, and I'm going to put an amount of money in there. I'm going to put $88,324. Okay, so there's a problem here. For you and me, I know that if a number represents money, I'll put a $sign. And if we've got a large number, I put a comma. But the computer doesn't want any of those things. The computer only recognizes if it's numbers just by themselves. So I can fix this by deleting those. And just to show that it works as a decimal, I can add a decimal 0.9. Okay, so that's that one. Now let's add favorite greeting. It holds text, and the data type for text, you can look back up here, was string. So I'll say string fav greeting equals hey. All right, so I've done it. I've added 2 new variables. And now it says assign the new variables values. So if you remember, assign means save something into them. So we've done that. And now it says adjust the print statements so that it displays your new variables. So I want to change, instead of saying introducing Marl, the 27-year-old firefighter, I also want to display what's inside my 2 new variables in a sentence that would make sense. So let's do that. I'm going to get rid of some of these extra spaces here. So introducing Marl, the 27-year-old firefighter who has, and then I'm going to say money, dollars, and says fave greeting. Okay, so I know that was a little bit fast. All I've done is I've added more text to this print line statement. So after job, I wanted to display more things, so I put a plus. And then I have text, and then a variable, and text, and then a variable, always separated by plus signs. If you have trouble thinking about what you should write, a nice thing to do is imagine what you want the sentence to look like when it displays. So you might want it to say, introducing Marl, the 27-year-old firefighter who has blah, 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 $324.9, etc. So if this is what you wanted to display, some of this is text introducing Marl, not Marl. So just introducing, this is text. So you can put quotes around your text. But then Marl, that's the variable here. So you don't want to actually have the text Marl. You want this to be the variable name. So instead of Marl, replace it with the variable that holds the name that you want. And then this one, the word that's text, but then 27 was age. So it's like you can go back through the sentence and think, what text do I want to display exactly the way that it looks? And what text is actually a variable? And instead, you can replace that text with the name of the variable. And then all you have to do is put plus signs in between, and that's what will make Java display the right thing for you. Okay, so you should go back now and delete these 2 and delete the other things and complete exercise 2, where you make your own variables called height and favorite food, give them values, and display something that makes sense. So for problem 3 here, I started by just typing in the sample code here, like the instructions tell me to do. It's totally okay if you forget to do certain things, but if you ever see a red underlining, look really carefully at your code and look really carefully at the example, because something's going to be different, and you can usually figure out what it is. The one exception is if you accidentally delete a curly brace, then the red underlining isn't happening in the code you're typing, it's happening somewhere else. So just make sure that your curly braces always happen in pairs. You can tell because if you click on an opening one, it will show you the closing one that it thinks matches. So this one matches and this one matches. But if I was gonna remove one, this one, you can see it matches because it's highlighting down there, but this one doesn't have a match. So that's an easy way to tell. Okay, so now here it says create new variables for day, date, month, and year. So day would be like Monday. Date would be like August 27th. Month, I guess date would just be like a number, like the 27th. Month would be August, and year would be 2020. All right, so I'm going to create the variables. So I'm just going to create a couple. I'm going to create them up here in the same place that we created the other ones. So I think day is going to hold a word like Monday, and so that's going to be text. So if I'm going to have like data type variable equals value in that pattern, the variable is called day. I know it needs to hold text like Monday. And then the data type is going to be the data type that lets me hold text, which is string. How could you have known it was string? That's what the notes are for. Check the notes. So that's an example of how you'd make the variable day. I want you to make variables for date and month and year. But not all of them need to be string. For example, the date is a number. It's what day of the month it is. So if it's a number, you might make that int. So date could equal 27. Not 327, 27. So I want you to use that same pattern to create all 4 variables. And instead of Monday the 27th, you should use values for whatever day it actually is. So right now it's actually Friday, September 4th. So if you're doing this today, you would fill in Friday and then 4. Okay, so I'm assuming that you're going to make the next 2. And then the next part of the problem says print the value of each variable on a line by itself. So I'm going to do that down here. And all that means is I'm going to have a print statement that displays each variable. So I'm going to say print line, and just to remind you, that's S-O-U-T, tab. So I'm going to print day, and then I'm going to print date. And then you would have 2 more that prints the other 2 variables. The reason we want to do that is we just want to see, is it possible for us to look and see what's inside the variables? Can I display them? It's not what we want it to look like eventually. It's just a temporary step. So you can see in my output here, Monday, that's coming from this line number 20, where I'm displaying what's inside day. And 27 is coming from line 21 here, which is displaying what's inside date. Okay, so you would paste in the program so far, and in yours, of course, you would have 2 more statements. And so the last part of this exercise is change the program so that the values are today's date. So you already did that. And then change the code so it displays in this format. It starts with the name of the day of the week, then a comma, then July, the month, then the actual date, then a comma, then the year. So it looks like I can delete this stuff about time because that's not part of what's going to get outputted. So how can I display something that looks like this? You could display it if you wanted to all in one line, just like we did in the last example. So it looks like I'm starting with the day of the week, so I display day, but then I want to display a comma. And because comma is text, I need to put it inside double quotes. And then I display the month next. And it's highlighted in red because I didn't make a month variable, but you will. And then I want a space. And then I want the date. And then I'd want another comma. And then I'd want the year. So how did I know how to do all that? I'll show you. I'm looking very carefully at what I want the output to look like. If it looks like Saturday, comma, July 16, 2011, this Saturday, I know that that's going to be inside my day variable. So I wrote the day variable to start with. And then next I want it to display a comma, but I know that to display a comma, that needs to be in quotes. Then I looked at July and I thought, July is a variable. So that's going to be my month variable. And then if I wanted to display a space, it doesn't display a space automatically. So the space also has to be in quotation marks. That's kind of a tricky thing that someone who doesn't program, it wouldn't ever occur to them. But a programmer has very careful attention to detail like that. So and you'll develop that also as you continue to program. So next is 16. That's the, what was that? That was the date. And so that's a variable. Next is a comma, and I know that that's text. And then next is the year, and I know that that's a variable. So that's how I got what to put inside my print statement. Is I very carefully thought about what I wanted it to look like. And things that were always the same, like a comma and a space, those became text. And values that I wanted to store inside variables, I replaced the value with the name of the variable that was holding that value. So this should work for you as long as you create all the variables that you need to. And then the last part of the program is don't just display it in this ordering, also display it in this ordering. So instead of Saturday, July 16th, display Saturday, 16 July. You don't need to make more variables for that because you already have all the variables that are saving the day of the week and the date and the month. Instead, you just need another print statement where you start with the day, but then instead of having a comma like in the American format, you'd have a space followed by the date. So what you'd actually output here is going to be a little bit different. So that's the end of the programming exercises. There's several more here, which you should be able to answer just by looking at your notes, because everything that we asked here is right there in the notes. Good luck. You have until before class on Tuesday to turn it in. Please email me if you have any problems, and I'll see you in class.